Here we are back in Lost Battles then, by Fifth Column Games. This is the Battle of Marathon, 490 BC. Athenians against Persians. I'm just starting turn 4 for the Athenians. And like the Persian turn that just went before it, because we're engaged all the way along the line now, you know, opposite forces all the way along the line, so their main decisions now are about how to time the expenditure of their commands along these lines so that they get their extra commands for dropping to 1 or 0 at a useful point where they can then figure out how best to apply any bonuses that they can rack up. So I think what they want to do is probably spend 2 commands to activate this group in here, and then 2 commands to activate this group in here, and then 1 command to activate one of their flank units, and that will be 5 commands, and that will drop them onto 1, and then they'll get their roll to see what they can do with their leader group here, because they want to try and make use both of the 1 command for activation and the 1 bonus that they give to applying bonuses, if that. Yeah, it probably makes sense by now. So yeah, so we're going to use 2 and then 2 and then 1 on one of the flanks. I think this nearest flank probably. We might go for the far flank though, because that's a levy unit there and we'll get more bonuses against it, and we might want to throw in a +1 bonus if we get a nice high die roll to try and wipe out this spent cavalry. Yeah, whereas we're unlikely to get, if we get an amazing roll, we can wipe out that levy cavalry without any bonuses. But we'd like to knock out this spent heavy cavalry, rack up the points, prompt the morale check, etc. So yeah, I think we'll go here, here, and then the far side, and then we'll drop back and do this near flank area. So okay, what are we looking at then? Well, we're looking at 3, 4, 5. So we're looking at 4 fresh average hoplite infantry, and then 1 spent. Now, because of the good attacks by the Persians, we can't support following units with any fresh hoplites here, so we're looking at an attacking line which is just like that, our lead unit and our 4 follow-on units. Now here's a thing, here's another little wrinkle in the rules. If you have got units, friendly units adjacent to you on one flank but not on the other, the attack value in that zone increases by 1. So we can actually have 6 attacks out of here rather than the 5. And the reasoning for that is that you can see the line comes in here and then in here and then drops back in here and then in here. So this abstracts the idea that the line isn't doing this shape, it's running more across here. You've got Persians in here and Persians in here, and you've got an Athenian line that's kind of coming down here, and across that diagonal is longer, and so the frontage is bigger. And all these attack values and these attack limits out of zones is basically taking the sort of frontage of the unit, so it's taking the size of the zone according to the scenario and the representation of the manpower per unit, and turning that into a frontage, and then making a calculation from there. So these attack limits do all kind of make sense, and this is a this is an abstraction of the fact that we're not running in nice clean perpendiculars. So we can attack with 6 units out of there. And similar, just to build on that, you may think I diddled the Persians out of an extra attack, because they could say the same here in that they had a unit to their side but not to the other side, and were therefore on an oblique frontage. And that's absolutely true, and I did make a bonus attack roll for them out of here. I just didn't do it on camera, and they rolled that rather pitiful 4, so they didn't do any extra hits. That's taken a bit longer to explain than I expected. Anyway, here we go. Some dice there for the hoplites, and let me just actually stop here and add up some modifiers off camera for them, so I know what I'm doing and I can do it nice and quickly. Okay, so just here back at this first attack of turn 4 by the Athenians. So the modifiers for the hoplites. This lead hoplite will get a +1 for being a lead unit. He'll get a +1 for being fresh lead hoplite attacking heavy infantry. He'll get a +1 for being a non-levy unit. He's an average hoplite attacking a levy unit, so he's attacking a levy hoplite. And he will get a +1 for being hoplite infantry attacking a tile containing enemy hoplites who did not all just enter that tile on their own preceding turn. In other words, it sounds like the rules give bonuses to hoplites who are in motion and moving forward, using momentum against hoplites who are fixed and stationary and set. So he's getting a +4, and then the rest of these are not getting the lead, the +1 for being a lead unit, or the +1 for being a fresh lead hoplite, but they are getting the +1 for non-levies attacking levies, and they are getting a +1 for attacking hoplites who have not just entered the tile that they're on. You do not get a minus for being spent unless your entire army is fatigued, and that's a special designation that's given in the scenario setup. So we're looking at 6 attacks here, and we've got a +4, and then +2, +2, +2, +2, +2. So let's, and as I said, these matchups do tend to favour the Athenian hoplites. So let's go. Here's the +4 attack. Got a 7, +4 is 11, and that will be 1 hit on the levy hoplite. And because there are different types of units in here, we will flip him over. Now we could replace him with a fresh unit. The question is, and this isn't something I've considered before, would I prefer to completely lose those levy hoplites because they're actually acting as a bit of a liability? Now they are not going to be fresh for very long because they're going to take these hits, and then they're giving +1s for attacking tiles in which they're in for being stationary hoplites. Basically, stationary hoplites are a bit of a liability, as these are about to become. Would they prefer this early on in the game just to be taking the morale checks before the unit's in a bad way and have the hoplites killed? That's an interesting idea. I'm going to toy with that. I'm going to see how badly this goes for us. So what I'm going to do is swap that spent hoplite out and put our other levy hoplite in. So the next roll against us, this is the second roll against us. This is at +2. And that is an 8 +2 is 10, and that's going to be a hit. Okay. I'm going to keep that hoplite in there. I'm going to keep that spent hoplite in there to take the next hit. So this is the third attack. It's a +2. 6 +2 is 8. That doesn't hit us. This is the fourth attack, +2. 7 +2 is 9. That can hit us if they make an all-out attack, and this is an interesting rule for the hoplites as well. Similar to this idea that they are very much momentum based. If they're able to make an all-out attack, then they must. That's one of the rules of hoplites. If they're able to make an all-out attack, then they must. If this was a spent attacking hoplite, then they wouldn't be able to make an all-out attack because you can't commit sort of harry-carry like that. But this was a number 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's a fresh hoplite. So he now becomes spent and inflicts a hit. And that hit will shatter this hoplite. And at that point we have to make an army morale check. And the way you do that is you roll a d3, and that is your army morale. And you modify it according to just a list of modifiers, basically. And that gives you an overall army morale. And then you check to see whether any other modifiers apply to units across your army, which might take their individual morale to 0 or below. So here's the D3 roll for our army. It's a 1. So our army morale is 1, and we'll come across here. We get a +1 if we've got at least twice as many friendly as enemy units. We don't. We're about even. -1 for every 4 friendly units that have been shattered. Well, this is the first one, so no problem there. -1 if at least 2 uninspired or at 1 average or better friendly generals have been killed, wounded or withdrawn. No. -1 if there are at least twice as many enemy units as friendly. No. -1 if your camp's been occupied, or if at least 2 more friendly centre tiles currently containing enemy units than there are enemy centre tiles currently containing friendly units. And that is a problem, because there are 2 enemy centre tiles containing enemy units, these 2 here, and no enemy centre tiles containing friendly units, none of these 3 across here. So we currently have an army morale of 0. That's not good. Okay. So then we have to look at individual unit morale, based on the fact that all of our units across our army are currently at 0. The effect of being at 0 is the unit panics if there's another unit in its tile that's been shattered by the current unit's attack, or panic due to the current morale test. Otherwise it remains in place. So let's have a look at the situation in various tiles. Over here, this guy's a levy, and that gives him a -1. And that's terrible. So yeah, this levy unit here is going to panic because the net army morale is 0, and then he's got a -1 for being a levy. So I think he's going to panic, and that means he goes into the routed section over there. In here, heavy infantry except hoplites adjacent to enemy hoplite infantry get a +1. So these guys are all levies, and that gives the -1, but they're also all heavy infantry adjacent to enemy hoplites, and that puts them on 0. Apart from this guy who doesn't get that, and who is also spent and a levy. So he's not getting the +1. He's getting a -1 for spent and a -1 for levy, and he's on -2, and he is going to rout. Actually, this guy does not rout. The cavalry does not rout. He is withdrawn because he's fresh, whereas this guy that just routed because he was spent. So the cavalry has withdrawn. That has just routed. Okay, in here we'll all be okay because we've got no hoplites, and because the +1 from being adjacent to enemy hoplites will cancel out the -1 for being levies. We've got no spent units, and so we are on a net zero, and nothing in here has panicked us. Over here, similarly, that's not quite true. We've got a spent unit in here, and so he is going to have -1 for being levy, -1 for being spent, and even though he's adjacent to hoplites, that puts him on -1, and he's just routed. Ouch. Interestingly, we could try and use the leader to rally units as they rout, but you can't have rally attempts again with levy troops, another one of their critical weaknesses, and so that can't happen. And this guy goes in our routed pile up over there. And then over here, this guy is not levy. He's not a levy unit, but he is spent, and he doesn't get the +1 for being a heavy infantry unit, but he does get a +1 for being 3 or more tiles away from the tile currently under attack. So this is the tile currently under attack, and he's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the tile currently under attack, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4 away. So he gets +1 for that, -1 for being spent, and he stays on the board. Ha! And that was a really, really dicey army morale check. And you can see you're in danger of lots of your army, especially in levy armies like this, where they're getting -1s for each of their individual units before they even start. You're in grave danger of everything just packing up and leaving, as we just saw. Fantastic. Right, so back to this combat then. We're on the 5th attack, and we have to nominate a new lead unit, so we'll throw a levy archer in the way. So this attack is at a +2, and that gets a 3, and the final attack at a +2 gets an 8. +2 is 10, and that's going to be a single hit. And we'll just apply that to one of these levy archers. Phew. Right, that was the first Athenian attack. The next one I was going to do was in here. I'm just going to take a quick pause and recover my composure a little bit after that impromptu army morale check, which I wasn't kind of expecting. Okay, I've just spotted something else here, which is again super interesting. So we've just done this army morale check across the Persian line. One of the modifiers I've just seen, -1 if the unit has adjacent enemy units to its right and left, or front and rear. And this entire group here has enemy units, adjacent enemy units to its left and to its right. So it's flanked on either side by enemy units, and that is a -1. Now, that's really bad news for the Persians. The only good news for them is that all these average archers are not getting the -1 for being levies, but the 3 levy archers in here, if you give them a starting morale of 0, you give them +1 for being heavy infantry adjacent to enemy hoplites, so they're on 1. You give them -1 for being levies, they're on 0. You give them -1 for having the adjacent units to the left and right, and they are on -1, and they all panic. So these 3 levy archers all just panicked here, and because they weren't spent, they all go in the withdrawn box. I don't think there's any difference between withdrawn and routed, but in terms of point value, but yeah, they we'll see at the end. They go in the withdrawn section over there. Ouch. Okay, so now we're doing this combat here with these average archers, and I should use up 2 commands, and I'll now use 2 more commands for this activation here, normal activation in here. This average hoplite against an average archer then is +1 for a lead unit, +1 for being a fresh lead hoplite, and that's it, because he's not attacking a levy and he's not attacking an area with stationary hoplites in it, so he's not getting those bonuses, so he's on a +2. And then these guys back here are, I don't know if they're getting any attack bonuses at all. I don't think they are. I think they're just, yeah, I think they're just on flat rolls. Let me just double check that. Non-levy unit attacking levy, no, they're on flat rolls. So we've got +2, and then flat rolls for the 3 other hoplites across the back. So let's give the +2 a roll, gets a 5, and then flat roll 6, flat roll 11, that is a hit, so we'll just apply that to one of the archers. And finally a 7, and that doesn't do anything either. As you can see, those archers, those average archer, heavy archer infantry, are reasonably tough against the hoplites, and that didn't go too badly, all things considered. So now the Athenian plan was actually to activate over here and attack that cavalry, but they're going to have to rethink now, because that cavalry's since left the field. Let's attack down here then. Let's activate this for a command, and then we'll just leave ourselves up here and on that flank to see what we can do with our bonus commands. So we'll roll to see how many extra commands we're going to get. We get a 3, we go back up to 4 commands. Okay, and this guy is going to attack. He's attacking heavy cavalry, and so he's heavy infantry attacking heavy cavalry. He only needs an 8 to hit. He's a lead unit, so he's getting a +1, but he's not a fresh lead unit. So he's got on a +1, and he needs an 8 to hit, and he's got a 3, and he hasn't done anything. Okay, so now it's time for the Athenians to figure out what to do with their remaining 4 commands. And I think they're going to spend them all in here, or are they? See, what they could do is issue an express command here, move him forward and turn him round onto the flank, and try and roll up the flank of the Persian line here. Or what they could do is activate here for 1, give a bonus for 1, give another bonus for 2, and that would also use up 4 commands. But what they could do is activate here for 1 and give a bonus for 1, and that would be 2 commands, and that would make use of the leader and then use the 2 over on the flank. They're going to do that. So they're going to activate this guy for 2 commands, and he's going to have an express activation, come in here for 1 action, come onto the flank of these archers for their 2nd activation. And then finally we will do our activation in here. And we haven't got that situation where we've got friendly units on one flank and not the other, so we've still got an attack limit of 5. It's going to cost us 1 command to activate, and then we're going to put a command into an attack bonus, but not for our lead unit. Our lead unit has got enough attack bonuses. We're going to use it for a follow-up attack with one of our following units. Our lead unit is going to have +1 for being lead, +1 for being a fresh hoplite in the lead, +1 for attacking levies. So he's going to have a +3. So we'll give it to a following unit who's going to get a +1 for attacking a levy, and a +1 from the attack bonus that we're going to give him, and have a +2. And then we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 fresh units that we can attack with from here. So we're going to go +3, +2, and then the rest of these are going to get +1s for being non-levies attacking levies. So here we go. First one on a +3. 7 + 3 is 10, and that's going to cause a hit, and the levies can swap out their fresh unit for their spent unit for a fresh one. So now a +2 attack, an 8 + 2 is 10. That's going to cause another unit to be spent. Third, and now 3 on +1. We've got a 4 doesn't do anything, a 7 doesn't do anything, and a 2 doesn't do anything, and that is the end of the Athenians' attack. And we go into turn 4 for the Persians, with the situation looking pretty rough for them. Yes, one thing I do have to do is adjust their fighting value based on all this stuff that's just left the field. So their fighting value has gone down by 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. They've basically lost 7 lots of levies, and they're each worth 2, so we lost 14 points of fighting value, and so they're down from 59 to 45, and they're going to have therefore 4 commands rather than the 5 they were getting. So as they come into their turn 4, they've got 4 commands now to try and do something against the attacking Athenians, and that isn't looking particularly likely, but we'll see what they can do. Okay, Persian turn 4 then. Here at Marathon, they've got their 4 commands due to their reduced fighting value, and it's going to take them 4 commands to activate their 3 main fighting groups. This is 2, it cost them 1 in here, cost them 1 in here, and we'll roll a bonus die at some point during that lot and see what we can do with this cavalry. So yeah, I think what we're going to have to do is attack here for 2, attack here for 1, and at that point roll our bonus dice and then see where we're at with regards to handing out bonuses and activating this cavalry over on the flank. So let's attack here. So we'll spend 2 commands for a normal activation in here. We've got 4 attacks going in. We've got a lead levy archer unit who's going to get +1 for being a lead unit, and the others will be on flat dice rolls. So the lead unit gets a 9 +1 is 10, and that's going to cause another hoplite to be spent. Then the next unit, the following 3 are I'll do the spent unit first, because if he gets the option to make an all-out attack, he can't, and then I'll do the unspent units. So that's a 10 from the spent unit, and that's another hit. That's going to cause another hoplite over here to be spent, and they're giving a good account for themselves despite the trouble that they're in. I don't think that's going to apply now, that 6 attack, because these guys haven't got the unit adjacent to them. Anyway, so that's 2 hits out of 2. They're doing really quite well, those levy archers, standing up for themselves. We've now got 2 more attacks from unspent levy archers. That's a 5, and finally a 7. So that's where they're at. They've now caused 6 hits on that group of hoplite infantry that's come to attack them, doing pretty well. Now we'll spend a command. In here, I guess. Yeah. For a normal activation in here with the commander helping out, and we'll roll our bonus orders. We'll get a 3, so we'll go back up to 4 orders. Okay, so then we'll roll with our lead Levy Archer with a +1, and we'll do we want to spend a command to give him a +1? Yes, we do. We'll give him a +1 with a command, so he's on +2. We got a 4, and then we've got 4, and we'll do the unspent units first. These are on flat dice rolls, so 7 doesn't hit, 7 doesn't hit, 9. Did I say I was doing the unspent ones first? I think I did, didn't I? Yeah, I was working left to right. So a 9, they could cause the unit to be spent with an all-out attack, but he's already spent, so he can't hit. And a 7 doesn't hit, unfortunately, and they've not got anywhere. Okay, this area has to activate, and then they'll spend a unit for a bonus for a +1. So their lead archer is going to have a +2. He's got a 9 + 2 is 11, and he causes a hit and a unit to be spent. And then they've got 4 attacks from unspent average archers with no bonuses. So an 8 doesn't hit, a 5 doesn't hit, a 6 doesn't hit, but a 10 does hit. So that's another spent hoplite unit there. And finally, we've got this cavalry to have a go at this average hoplite infantry down here, and he needs a 9. He's getting a +1 for being a lead unit. He's got no minuses, so he is just rolling. And that's a shame, because he could have shattered that. If he could have got a hit, he could have shattered that hoplite infantry, and that might then have caused some interesting morale problems for the Athenians, given that they've got quite a lot of spent units across the board. But he's not able to hit, and that is the last order from the Persians, and we move into a turn 5 for the Athenian army, who are back up with their 6 commands, and I will carry that on the next vid.